And we're now joined live by RNC National Committeewoman Harmeet Dhillon.
And we're also joined by Democratic strategist Steve Maviglio. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
All right, Steve, first question. You know people. Where is the governor right now? It seems to be a secret. And where is he going to be spending the night?
Well, I just saw on Twitter that he was in San Francisco appealing to some volunteers to keep those phones clanging to get people to get out to vote. Where he'll be tonight has been a little bit of a mystery.
All right. Well, we know Edison Research reporting that 9 million votes nearly now have been cast in the recall as of yesterday. The majority being Democrats, only 26% Republicans. So how do you think that will impact turnout today and ultimately the outcome that we see in this recall? Harmeet, let's start with you.
Well, I think that you're going to find that a lot of Republicans prefer to vote in person. And so there has been a peak in Republican voting towards the end of this election, particularly in the last 4 days and today. I know as a lawyer who's dealing with a lot of lawyers in the counties, fielding issues in the field, that we are seeing a ton of our Republican voters turning out today. So that's to be expected. What we know about this recall is that over a third of the proponents and signatures on the recall petitions were not Republicans. And so I think people are assuming that all those Democrats voted for Gavin Newsom and, not really accounting for the independents. We're going to have to wait until the polls close and we see the actual returns to see whether those predictions are true or not.
Yeah, and so, Steve, some are expecting Democrats, the no for the recall will have an early lead when the polls close, but later, as the votes are counted, the yes on recall votes will surge past the no's. What do you think of that notion?
That's what's called California dreaming. If you look at the mail votes with the overwhelming number of votes in this election will be by mail, they've been lopsidedly for Democrats. And the reason is Republicans are a third party in the state behind even independents. They haven't won statewide election in 15 years. They're not going to do it tonight. And it will all prove to be a colossal waste of millions of dollars that could have spent on our schools or health care or something productive on this bogus recall attempt.
All right. Well, Harmeet, what do you think? Yes or no, regardless of the outcome of the recall today, what are the national implications of it? Yes or no? What do you see as being the national ramifications of the outcome here in California?
Well, I think there are national ramifications in the following sense, that California has been a single-party state for many years with supermajority in the legislature. And as Steve said, all the constitutional offices swept by Democrats, and people are dissatisfied with how things are going in this state. For the first time ever, California has lost a congressional seat, and that's because people are moving out of the state relative to other states. Everybody who lives in this state, up in your area, we know about the fires, we know about the water shortages, we know about the terrible schools, the unemployment, the crime in our cities. This is not a good path for our state, and I love this state. I'd like to see us do better. And so I think regardless of the outcome, Gavin Newsom did have a 24-point advantage when he won his governorship 3 years ago. Those are not going to be the numbers tonight, and I hope he sees those numbers if he stays as the governor and make some changes. And if he is replaced, then California knows that we will have a chance to make some changes before the next gubernatorial election. So similarly in D.C., I think that, Democrats are riding high on having won the White House in 2020, but your average voter is not on the far left, like what you're seeing out of D.C., or, very conservative like myself. They're somewhere in the middle, and California needs to be moving towards that direction as well.
But Harmeet, I think it was surprising to many that Republicans did not endorse one candidate here. Is this a sign the party is divided? And how do you think the fact that nobody was endorsed, how do you think that'll impact tonight's vote?
Well, I was a leader of the rule to propose potentially endorsing somebody, and the reason for that is we didn't know whether a Democrat was going to get into the race or not. If there were a strong Democrat, like we've had in prior elections, somebody who's pro-school choice, for example, we might have had, sort of a fight on the Democrat side where unity on the Republican side would matter. But the dynamics of how the statute is written with a recall election make it irrelevant. It is a sort of winner-take-all situation. And so we felt it was better to encourage turnout, which I think everybody would like to see, people engaging in our democratic process, to have supporters of every Republican candidate turn out. So I and Sean Steele, my counterpart at the RNC, made the decision that we thought it was better, and we had overwhelming support from the party. Far from being divided, I've supported all of these candidates. and I know a lot of party leaders have as well. And I think regardless of the outcome today, it's a great example of representative democracy that we were able to put this on the ballot. And, you know, to Steve's point about the cost of it, think of it a little differently. It's going to be costing less than 1% of all the money that Gavin Newsom flushed down the toilet in EDD fraud, over $30 billion in this last year. So that's the price of democracy, and I think it's a good price to pay.
All right, Steve Maviglio and Harmeet Dhillon, thank you both so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We appreciate it, and we will see how the rest of the evening goes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And